This is my music top 10 and it's 1967. I was a measly little 13 years of age. However, some of these albums that I've chosen in my top 10 were absolutely scintillating. So let's get started. At number 10 was Axis Bowler's Love by Jimi Hendrix, Experience. This was the second album that Jimi released in this year. It wasn't quite up to the quality of the debut, but it's still a fine piece of work. Spanish Castle Magic is a fantastic rock number. I love Little Wing, of course, which is such a famous song of his. And I also like Bold as Love. At 9, it's the Buffalo Springfield again. There's classic songs on here by Stills, Fury and Young. Broken Arrow, which is a Young song, of course. And then Mr. Soul, also written by Neil Young. But my highlight of the album is Bluebird, which of course is a Stills song. At number 8, Younger Than Yesterday by the Byrds. I came to this album much later than 67, I might add, and I'm really glad I found it. There's some terrific pop music on this album. The Byrds were very much seen as the American Beatles, and for many reasons. They could write great songs. Crosby, of course, Roger McGuinn, and such a great band. The cut of the songs on this one is the famous single, So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. I also like My Back Pages, that's a Dylan composition. And Everybody's Been Burned, that's a Crosby song. At number 7, it's The Doors, the debut album by Jim Morrison, Manzarek, Densmore and Krieger. I got them all out in the end. And, well, awesome. That's the only way to describe this album. It's got the absolutely spellbinding single, Light My Fire, and Break On Through, which is a great rock song. And the 12-minute epic that closes the album, The End, which later was heard on the soundtrack to Apocalypse Now. At number 6 then, it's Piper at the Gates of Dawn by Pink Floyd. Again, this was their debut album. We'd never really heard anything like this before, and it really shook the pop establishment up because it was so psychedelic. The powers that be were amazed that anybody liked it, but of course millions did. Astronomy Domine, which was a big favourite in their live set, and the exceptional Interstellar Overdrive. Okay, at number 5, it's Procul Harum, and this is their album. Not sure if it was their first, but it was an early album anyway, and it had the two magical singles, Conquistador and The Timeless, A Wider Shaded Pale. Let's move on before I start humming it. At number 4, it's the Magical Mystery Tour by the Beatles. This sort of was slipped out towards the end of the year, and it really was a psychedelic album, to say the least. The track titles bore that out. I Am the Walrus, Strawberries Fields Forever, Penny Lane, the tracks go on, Hello, Goodbye. Absolutely astonishing piece of work by these four men from Liverpool. Into the top 3 then, and at number 3 it is Forever Changes by Love. I absolutely adore this album. It was certainly Arthur Lee's highlight. The string arrangements were a new style of music which gave great depth to these pop songs. Alone Again and More Again, to mention just a couple. So it's into the top two now, and at number 2 it's the Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix Experience. When this arrived to the public, it was met with absolutely astonishment. How could anybody create this type of music with the style of guitar playing that just blew you away? This first album by the Jimi Hendrix Experience was on my turntable daily, even at the tender age of 14. No, that's a load of old hogwash, because I wasn't buying albums then. But I was made aware of this a couple of years later, after Electric Ladyland appeared. Third Stone from the Sun, Are You Experienced, Foxy Lady, Manic Depression, Red House, I Don't Live Today, well, on and on and on. They're all outstanding. And Fire. Wow, what a tremendous blast that was. So it's now down to the top album for 1967. No surprises for guessing this one. It was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band by the Beatles. I do remember this when I was 13 years of age, because my sister bought it. She was 19, and I did like the Beatles, but this was a new animal completely. And of course, later on, I managed to get stuck into it myself, and it became a big record in my life. It did in everyone's life. No point in listing the tracks because they're all brilliant, apart from maybe A Day in the Life, which finishes the album off. An absolute awesome piece of work. But it's beyond doubt possibly the greatest, not possibly, is the greatest pop album in the history of popular music. If you haven't heard it, why have you been sleeping for 50 years? Okay, that's it.